Okay, it is about solving rational equations. We're also going to talk about something called extraneous solutions. And the biggest thing is, it said solve rationals in this first one. What's the difference in this last thing? Set up and solve rational equations. So that basically just means sometimes they don't give you the equation, you got to set it up. All right, so one thing at a time. Did you remember how to start this? How many of you are good? You got this done already? Raise your hand if I'm not going to promise, I'm not going to call on anybody. Okay, so a bunch of you guys feel like you got this. It's easy to forget you want to set them equal to 0. So the people that didn't raise your hand, I bet you forgot that you want to set it equal to 0. That's what you do with quadratics. And then if you can factor it, you should. It's so good it's on the wall right there. But this one can factor. If it hadn't factored, you'd use the quadratic what? Formula. All right. So this one does factor, though. If you haven't already, get it factored. Jack, how do I pick the signs? Because I always say to do the signs next. How did you know it had to be a plus and a minus? Because this 4 is negative. That forces you to have one positive and one negative. All right. Turf, final two numbers.
Negative 4x minus 4x plus 1.
All right. Now, he says it's that, and I honestly haven't thought it through yet, so I'm going to check him to see if he's right by going like this. Negative 4x, positive 1x, and together, do they make negative 3x? They do, and so you've done it right. Nice job. Now, do you get that there's like sure that you're right, and then there's sure that you're right? Now, if you were gonna decide, there's a room full of 100 kids, and you were gonna decide whether you were gonna raise your hand and say, I think I got the answers, do you get that raises your level of concern? Like, I better make sure that these answers work? How could you be positive that they work? You could go back to the original problem and stick them in. Now, I'm not saying that I would do this on every problem that I had. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if I had a test, which you will, and it had these kind of problems on it, which you will, I would test your answers because it only takes a few extra seconds and you can know that you're right. So let's just take 2 seconds and do this. What's 16 minus 12? Just say it. What's 16 minus 12? It's 4, and look at that. It worked, see? I know that I'm right because I stuck the number in and I checked it. There are some times in life where a math problem could cause somebody to die. That could involve medications. Imagine you're a nurse and you have just been tasked with giving Mr. Borsted his, what's a medication you get? Morphine. Morphine, if you give him too much, you will kill him. You just have what be off by 1 decimal place. 10 versus 100. And you gave him 10 times too much and you could kill the person. Do you get that nurses could by accident kill somebody? Okay, so this is a moment where you might want to double check your math. Well, this lesson today has that in it, where you can have done everything right, but if you don't check it, sometimes one of your answers just fails and it isn't right, and that's called an extraneous solution. Okay, math can kill people. I'll give you another example. You fill up your own tanks to go scuba diving because if you put in the wrong amount, then it's on you. This is a little different in that you might just think, well, just put all the oxygen in there that you can. Well, then you could say that, but then what if you actually need 2 tanks? And you fill up one of your tanks all the way, but that wasn't enough. If you're down way deep and all of a sudden you run out of oxygen because your tank is empty, you're screwed. It's really dangerous. At that moment, you're 80 feet down and you have no oxygen. What are you supposed to have? You're supposed to have a buddy that you're swimming with. And I practiced this. That's one of the things they teach you to get certified to scuba dive, is if all of a sudden, for some reason, you're out of oxygen, it could be that your tank line got cut. It could be that there's a blockage in the line. It could be that you just ran out of oxygen. You swim over to the other person you're swimming with, and you get right in their face and you go like this, which is, for the video, it's your hand going across your neck, and you're basically saying, I can't breathe. And then what they do is they take a deep breath out of their regulator. It's the thing you stick in your mouth. They take a deep breath and then they hand it to you. And then you get to get your breath, which you are desperate for by now, right? And then you trade back and forth and you slowly go up. You slowly rise towards the surface and you go back and forth trading that regulator and you can survive. My point is, though, there are times when math problems could cause somebody to die. This test has problems on it where if you don't check your answer, you're going to get fooled into thinking you got it when you didn't have it. I'll show you that more later. All right, another really simple question, and tons of kids don't know it, so don't feel bad if you don't know it. How do you solve that? 1 over x equals 8. Tons of kids aren't going to know. If you know, be prepared to have the guts to tell me what you think. What do you do to solve that? This is just one of those little things. It could be on the ACT test, and it's like, dang, I'd never thought of that before, and all of a sudden, you're not going to get one right. That would have been really easy. There's 200 little things you have to know for the ACT. This is one of them. I try to help you fix those with that top 20. This one, let's see, with the dice of destiny, who is supposed to be called upon right now? Row 5, person 5. In this case, Effie, that is you. Do you know what to do? You are correct. You knew what to do. You just weren't sure. See, if I times by x on both sides, it does what's called clearing the fraction. Do you get those will cancel now? And now there's no fraction anymore. And if you can't solve this, you must have serious brain fog from over break. You just divide both sides by 8. And there you go. X equals 1/8. How many of you had it? Raise your hand if you had it. Okay, that's more than half the class at least. All right, do you get how there's some equations that are kind of weird that you have to solve? Here's another weird one. Square root of x equals x plus 2. Now again, a lot of people are like, well, subtract x from both sides. You can't, because how are you going to take the square root of x and subtract x from it? You can't. They're not like terms. So, just knowing the first step. A lot of times when I'm tutoring kids, I can tell if really quick if they know. If you can tell me the first step, I know you're going to be able to get the rest of it right. What's the first step here? Yes. Square both sides. But in this case, Lux, I bet you would know this. Squaring both sides is a little trickier than you might think. What's the tricky part of squaring both sides here?
Did you have to square x plus 2, which is x squared plus...
Yes. So this does just come out to x, but this comes out to x squared plus 4x plus 4. That's the tricky part. People a lot of times think, oh, it's just x squared plus 4. No, it's not. You know what? This is right off of the top 20. It's, do kids remember that you can't just square the x and square the 2. It really means x plus 2 and another x plus 2, so you get a 3-part answer. All right. Okay, so moral of the story, is that done solving yet? No, but I think most of you could set it equal to 0. And I think most of you could finish it from there. Would you please finish it from there? I looked at the final, and I can tell you there is tons of factoring on the final. Tons. So I've been working at that all semester. Uh-oh. We may have a mistake. You are correct. 4x minus x is plus 3. It still will factor, folks. No, actually it won't. My bad. It won't factor now. Oh, okay. I did just randomly set this one up, but it's good that every now and then you see that the teacher makes a mistake, oops, sorry, 4x minus x is positive 3x. I was thinking in my head, oh, it's negative 3x, so it'll factor. But on the test, I bet it would have factored. But just side note, if it can't factor, then you can use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative 3, because it's negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 9, minus 4 times a, which is 1, so I'm not even going to do it, times c, which is 4, all over 2a, which is 2. And this has a negative under the square root, which means there's no real solutions. So that didn't take too long to figure out there were no solutions to that. And sometimes the answer is that there is no answer. Okay, so moral of the story, when you have to solve simple equations, sometimes you have to do something weird at the beginning. Like in this case, we needed to square both sides. In this case, we needed to clear the fraction by multiplying by the denominator. In this case, we needed to set it equal to 0. So the first step is so key. All right, are you ready for page 2? Turn it to this page. Now, with that little preloading of info into your brain, you should know what to do on this one. It looks really scary. It's really not that scary. Mr. M, what do you think we should do to everything?
I'm not quite sure.
All right. If you can factor it, you should. It's my favorite line, but my second favorite line is clear the fractions. What if I give you that advice? Yeah, how do you do that? Last time we multiplied by something, so multiply by 4. Now, this part also bothers some kids because they're like, why are you, I thought you just multiply by 4 on each side. No. Well, kind of yes and no. Let me show you this. If I had 2 plus 4 is equal to 6, would you agree that 2 plus 4 is equal to 6? If I just times by 2 on both sides, is that still equal?
Yeah.
Is that really equal? Only if you distribute the 2 and put 1 here. Because see, 4 plus 8 is equal to 12. But without that little 2 right there, it wouldn't have worked, would it? See what I mean? If you think of it as multiplying this side by 12 and that's a 2 that's getting distributed, then it works. But you have to multiply everything, all the terms, by 4 in this problem. That's why. Okay, so now here we are multiplying everything by 4. And actually your life becomes super simple because the 4's just cancel out the other 4's. That does cancel that. That does cancel that. And that does cancel that. So I'm left with 2x plus 7 plus 5x minus 9 is equal to 13. If you can't solve that, you shouldn't be in pre-calc. Let's see if you can do it. I'm not saying, you already saw me make a dumb mistake, but I mean if you are lost and you have no idea what to do, then this class is too hard for you. So take a second, finish this thing. Barring some little dumb mistake, you should be able to get an answer. Okay, now it's just the grunt work of like getting like terms together. Those two are like terms and those two are like terms. So hopefully you didn't make just a dumb mistake. 7x, and that together makes minus 2 equals 13. Add 2 to both sides. 7x equals 15. Divide by 7. I hope it's 15 over 7. Raise your hand if you had the same thing as me. Okay, cool. All right. What was the moral of the story on this problem? There was a 4 that we had to clear so that we could clear the fractions. It's going to get harder, of course. This one, the only difference is that this negative right here is very easy to screw up. So, try it. I called out the negative. See if you get trapped by it. The negative does get distributed in there. But let's clear the 4 first. You're not wrong that this negative is key and it needs to distribute, but let's clear out the 4 first, because from my experience, as long as there's fractions in the problem, it feels really hard. And as soon as the fractions are all gone, it feels way easier. So, all right, times 4. And notice this is technically 4 over 1. I usually just do a 4 on the top, like this, but it's technically 4 over 1. The denominators don't get multiplied by 4, just the top, because it's really 4 over 1. And don't forget these parentheses here. But in this case, the 4 just cancels the 4, the other 4 cancels the 4, and this 4 cancels the 4, and then you rewrite it and it's much cleaner. 2x plus 7, and here's where you could easily mess up. Nate, you called out the negative, so do it right.
So it'd be minus 5x
Plus 9, very good. And from there, life is easy again. It's just basic algebra. Okay, so we're going to take this, and that makes negative 3x. That and that makes 16. Who had x equals 1? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, cool. Now, I'm going to take a second and just remind you that I said at the beginning of the hour that math done wrong could kill somebody. I know nobody's going to die if I get a wrong math problem in this hour, but you should check yourself. If this was a critical test question, here's all I'd ask is make sure that this answer doesn't just instantly kill the problem. Not like you don't have to do it all the way, but just make sure if I put in a 1 here and here, it doesn't like kill the problem, and it doesn't. So I think it'll work. You'll see later in the hour, one of your answers, when you stick it back in, it kills the problem. Meaning like it makes the problem impossible. So yeah, this is precalc. This is not easy. All right, this is easy. No offense, but if you mess this one up, it's on you. Clear the fractions, get this one solved. Should be easy. Okay, did you know that you needed to clear the fraction and that it's smart to do it first? I don't know. Somebody ever tell you that? X squared. It's very easy to think it's 2x, but that wasn't add. That was times. And then if you're stuck here, you didn't listen at the beginning of the hour where I reminded you to always set them equal to 0. Equals a 0. And now, my favorite saying, Bridger, what are you supposed to do now?
Factor.
Yep. And help me start. Don't do it all the way, just start.
X parentheses.
Is it pluses and minuses, or is it pluses and pluses?
I'll be plus and plus.
Okay, that's what I always do next. And now you're down to just what makes 18. And don't try to be perfect, just give me one thing that makes 18.
6 times 3.
6 times 3. And then we got to see, did that work? And you check the outside, you get 3x. Inside, you get 6x. Did that work? Yeah, because this and this added up to 9x, which is perfect. 9 and 2 wouldn't have worked, but 6 and 3 does. And now, you go back and you go, okay, the actual answer is x equals negative 6 and x equals negative 3. Those are called the x-intercepts, the roots, the zeros, the solutions. They were super, super critical. And did anybody even think about checking them in the original? Then you win. If you didn't even think about checking it in the original, you're going to get one wrong on the test. Here, I'm checking it in the original. Is negative 3 going to kill this problem if I put a negative 3 there? No. Is negative 3 going to kill the problem if I put it there? No. What do you mean, kill the problem, Mr. Server? Well, what if one of my answers would have been 0? Do you get you can't divide by 0? And then if one of my answers would have been 0 and it turns out that it kills the problem, then that's not a real answer. That's called an extraneous answer. You're looking for those. Neither of these was extraneous, but they're coming. Both of those numbers would have been fine. They both work. They are the x-intercepts. All right. Is it this one where all of a sudden one of the answers is going to be extraneous? Well, I can tell you this. If one of my answers comes out to 0, then that's a lie, because 0 does not work. You know what I mean? If I go back and stick a 0 in, it kills the function right there when I put a 0 there. What's the other thing that would kill this function? What if you put in a what there? A -2. Do you get how -2 would also be a false answer? If I think the answer is -2, it can't be. Because look, when you put -2 back in, you get a 0, and dividing by 0 is not possible. So I better not get the answers of 0 or -2. We'll see if we do. Turf. What's the first step? Clear the fractions.
Yeah.
So,
X.
you want me to times everything by x? You are correct. Notice I do it to all 3 parts. Yeah. But does it just cancel in the middle one?
It just removes the x's and then leave a 7 over 2.
Classic mistake. I thought I would catch you. No, you can't cancel that kind because it's part of a plus problem. So that x does not cancel. Hey, I made mistakes earlier today myself, so don't feel bad. 3 minus 7x over x plus 2. And I know that's complicated looking, but we're going to fix it in a second. Winston, what do you think we multiply by now?
I'm not sure.
Hint, is there a fraction?
Yes.
Get rid of it by multiplying by something.
Oh, x plus 2.
There you go. I knew you'd see it if I gave you enough time. And the whole reason we did that is so this would cancel that. And it did. It's gone. But I'm not saying the answer is like super easy. There's definitely some work to do here. But hey, you signed up for precalc. You could have taken FST. Or if you took FST last year, you could have taken stats, which would have been easier than this class, for sure. You chose to take the challenging class. So step up, finish this thing off. Noah, would you please distribute this part out for me? This part here.
X plus 2.
There's a 3 in front of it. That's times by 3.
3x plus 7.
All right. Now, this part, it's really messy, but what do you have for that?
-7.
Just -7?
7.
There you go. And distribute this part out.
5x squared plus 10.
Perfect. Do it 10x. You are correct. There you go. Now you're on a roll. Now you just got to combine like terms, and then you got to decide which side do you want to set equal to 0. Well, pro tip for you. You want the lead term to not be negative. Otherwise, you'll have to factor out a negative, which adds a whole extra pain in the butt step. So you want that 5x squared to be the side that has all the x's on it. You know what I mean? Like, I could subtract 5x squared, but then it'll move over here and it'll be negative. And I don't want that x squared to be negative. So don't do it that way. Instead, bring all of this stuff over to the other side. Now I can put my negative 7x and my 3x together. That probably would be smart. And make it negative 4x plus 6 equals 5x squared plus 10x. You could have just subtracted them, you know, if you wanted to. Now I'm going to add 4x to both sides, and that'll get it over to here. And then I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. And remember, that's not nothing, it's 0. That's a dumb statement, but it's true. You have to have equals 0. Otherwise, your problem is completely different. If there wasn't anything that it was equal to, you couldn't solve it. So now there's a 0 equals, and yay, I've set it equal to 0. And then if you can factor it, you should. Now, honestly, at this point, I don't know if this thing factors, and I don't think it does. But I'm going to check quick. It won't take long. If it does factor, it's got to be a 5x and an x. And it has to be a plus and a minus because that's negative. See, this isn't taking very long. And then I only have two choices. It's either a 6 and a 1 or a 2 and a 3. So I'm going to check them quick. I put 2 and 3 there. I get negative 15x and plus 2x. And that does not make 14x. So that's not it. Can't be 2 and a 3. Could be a 3 and a 2. Let me put the 3 here once. Now I get negative 10 and positive 3, and that doesn't make 14 either. So I've checked 3 and 2. Can't be that. Could it be 6 and 1? Could be. But it's not going to be a 6 here because I have a 30, and there's no way that's going to make a 14. So it could be a 6 here maybe. And a 1. And there, you just saw me check it. And that doesn't make 14 either. So there's no factoring, so that's it. Does that mean there's no solutions to it? Not necessarily, but it means I'd have to use the what? Quadratic formula. That solves quadratics. It solves every quadratic. It's just some of them factor. This one didn't factor, though. Whew, heavy duty. So in the end, could we leave it like that? Well, I'll just say it this way. We'd never give you a test problem that's that hard because now we're stuck with using the quadratic formula on this, and you'd have to do b squared, which is 14 times 14, and that's kind of hard. It is 196. It's not like it's impossible, but, and then you'd have to do the square root of b squared minus 4ac, you know, so it'd be 196 minus 4 times 5 times 6, and it gets to be like a really bit of a struggle, so we wouldn't have one that hard. Let's move on to the last page, and you would totally have one like this. I totally get it. As you look at this problem, you're like, my gosh, how on earth am I supposed to do this? And anytime there's a problem that's so hard that everybody's looking at it going, I don't even know what to do, then I've told you what to do. I'm going to say that again. Every time that there's a problem that's so hard that everybody is stuck, then I can almost 9 out of 10 times, I know what you should do. Do you know what you should do? Then I haven't said this enough times, apparently. If you can factor it, you should. And yeah, it's factoring again. It's the answer. Almost every time. There's only one part of this that even factors, and you got to be able to know where that is and factor it. So I'm going to pause for a second while you get this thing factored. And then all of a sudden it gets a lot easier to understand what to do. Okay, Nate, what part factors? Yep, that part. I'm going to just rewrite the top part. Would you prepare to tell me what that part factors to at the end? What'd you get? Did you see those anywhere else that made you realize, oh yeah, they're over there, aren't they? So, moral of the story is I've told you to clear the fractions by multiplying by the denominators. Ava, what's one of the denominators? Yep. So everybody multiply everything by x minus 1. And the nice part is, it cancels in 2 out of the 3 spots. Spencer, what do I have next?
2x squared.
No, I think you're distributing this out when this actually just cancels. If you would please catch up and just write this problem down to where, oh, you have it? Okay, good. Then what's the other one place that it cancels? I want to cancel first.
X minus 3.
This and this can't cancel because they're different. X minus 1 and x minus 3 can't cancel.
Alright, x minus 1, x minus 1.
There we go. That's the other place it cancels. Now, I'm going to write it. Spencer, I want you to tell me what's the next step. Hint, we aren't done clearing the fractions.
Multiply all of them by x minus 1.
And I screwed up on top of here. Hold on, at least I caught it myself. Right there. That's supposed to be 1 times x minus 1. So this is just x minus 1 on top right there. Okay, I'm sorry. What did you say I should do next?
Multiply both sides by x minus 1.
You are correct. Notice that I have to do it in all 3 spots, including there. And then cancels, 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 cancels. That one I actually have to do. Hudson, would you please take over and tell me what this is? Yep, 2x squared minus 6x. Good job. And then how about this part? Plus x minus 1. Good. Equals just 2. And look at all of a sudden, the smoke is cleared and it's not that scary anymore because there's no more fractions. Now it's just a quadratic. So you set it equal to 0, and if you can factor it, you should, and I think it does. Take a second. We're almost done here, guys. I know it's hard listening. Staying focused on math this whole time. Oh, that's not that's a calculator. That's fine. I thought you were on your phone. Shouldn't need calc though, really. This one will factor. Turf, after you've cleaned it up and set it equal to 0, what equation did you have?
2x squared minus 7x minus...
Actually, stop a second. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
that's not 7x.
5x.
There we go.
Minus 5x, minus 3.
That is correct. That's just a page number here, so I'm scribbling it out. Okay. And if you can factor it, you should. Jack Sexton, tell me what goes here and here.
2x and x.
2x and x has to be that. Next, Morgan, what signs have to be here and here? Yep, has to be a plus and a minus. Very good. And Bridger, what numbers multiply to 3?
1, 3.
Yeah, so these last numbers in my factoring have to be a 1 and a 3. Now, which way they go, I'm pretty sure I remember from doing this in a different hour. I think it's a 3 here and a 1 here, but I won't know until I check, and that's negative 6x. And that's positive 1x, and together they make negative 5x. Boom! So we do have to finish it, set both parts equal to 0, and get the answers. Pretty sure I got negative a half and 3. Anybody else get the same thing? All right, cool. Anybody else have anything to add? Yes.
You have to plug them back in.
What? You have to check them in the original problem? Who would ever tell you something crazy like that? The 3, when you stick it in, doesn't work. You see how easy that would be on a test to forget? I warned you. I warned you should check them to make sure of that. We even did it on a couple of them. It'd be so easy to forget to check. And when you put the 3 back in, look, it kills this and it also kills this one. It makes that one 0 and it makes that one 0. You can't divide by 0. So 3 is what is called an extraneous answer. You did everything right and it still didn't work. So I want to pause for a second and say this is real precalc. Okay, this is not easy stuff. Look at this problem. It covers up a whole page. I have to zoom out to even make it fit on one page. You had to know how to factor to even start the problem. You have to know how to clear the denominator by multiplying by it. You have to clear another denominator then of the x minus 3 by multiplying by it. You have to know then how to set a quadratic equal to 0. Then you have to know how to factor a complicated quadratic, which is why I was trying to get kids to factor early in the year. You see now that we can't even do one problem without 2 different kinds of factoring in it. And then at the end, you have to remember to check your answers and see if they work. Because if they don't work, they're called extraneous answers. And you have to throw them out. You just put an X over it like that. Wow. All right. So that's what your next test is like. It's got things like that on it. All right. So I think our homework for today is way too long, and I'm going to cut a whole bunch of problems out of it. So would you please open your homework that is assigned for today? We'll do the first couple together, and then I'm going to cut out a whole bunch. And it'll be very reasonable, but it is strongly recommend you practice this, because these are not easy, and for a first day back after break, you're going to need a little practice. But I'm being very reasonable with cutting out a whole bunch. So you need to do your part. You signed up for precalc. We only have a couple weeks left, and then it's the finals, and then you're done with the semester. At that point, you can drop this class if you really want to. Not saying you should. If there's anybody that's just dying that it's so that hard, we can talk about the chance maybe we could switch you into FST. That'd be kind of weird. But you need to at least give me 2 solid, hard-working weeks, and then you'll be ready for your final, and you'll be fine. All right. So, number 1, off of the worksheet. Bridger, would you please read it to me?
X minus 2 over 3 plus x plus 5 over 3 equals 1 over 3.
Do you have an idea what we should do?
Times everything by 3.
Yep. Don't forget to put this in parentheses and this in parentheses so you aren't just timesing one of the numbers by 3. And then hopefully you'll remember why we even did that. It's so that the 3's cancel. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Ava, what do we get after it cleans up?
X minus 2, and then plus 1x plus 5.
Correct, equals 1. Very good. And then from there, just being honest, if you can't solve it from there, you're not in the right class. This is basic algebra and you're in precalc, so you can solve it from there. Let's go to number, and you can always check with the key if you want. Let's go to number 2 and just get started, just the first step. Jaden, would you read me number 2?
X plus 2 equals 15x.
What's your gut feeling on what we should do?
Times everything by
Times everything by x, very good. Now, I'm going to on purpose make a mistake here. And it's so easy to do. Sabins, what I do wrong?
you forgot to do 2x.
Yes, this x has to be distributed, so there would be a 2x. Now it looks a little more normal. Hudson, I've got a quadratic. I don't know what to do. Set it equal to 0. Very good. Noah, the factoring part. You got this, one step at a time. What goes here and here? Is it plus and plus or plus and minus?
Plus and minus,
Because of why?
because the negative.
Yes, has to be a plus and a minus. And now there's not too many choices on a 15. What do you think it is? Times. Yep, so a 5 and a 3. And now I'm going to try it here and see if it worked. Did that work? I'm getting negative 2x. Is that what I wanted? No. Is it the opposite of what I wanted? So what do? Switch the signs. I know switching the numbers would have worked, but trust me, when you have more complicated problems, you switch the signs and it'll always work. If you get the opposite of what you wanted, you switch the signs, not the numbers. And again, I know, in this case, it seems like, well, couldn't you switch? Yeah, but if there was a 2 here, only switching the signs would have worked. So trust me, if you ever get the opposite of what you wanted, switch the signs. All right, and then I've got my 2 answers buried in there, and if you can't find them, then you really didn't know what we were doing. So I think you can finish. Now, we are going to skip the following problems, so cross them off. We're going to skip 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 12. Gotta admit, I cut it down a lot. Why did I do that? To increase the probability that you would do the assignments, and realistically, I'm trying to make your life a little better. Because I don't think you need that much practice. I have been having you skip problems, and my grade averages are just as good or better than other people's that are assigning everything. So I think it's working. But you gotta do your side of it. So don't just pack this up and come back tomorrow with nothing done. Get them done. All right. Have a great rest of your day. That's all I got for the video for today.